Hello. I'm live. I'm Donna Balzer, and I'm here to answer your gardening questions. Maybe I need to look up. I don't know. I'm live today. I'm the author of the 3-year Gardener's Gratitude Journal. You can see I'm filling mine right up. There's hardly any room to write anymore. Anyway, I'm here today to answer your gardening questions. So join me now. Type in, I think there's a spot right at the bottom of your page, at the bottom right-hand side, where you can type in your questions, and then we'll go from there. But first off, I just wanted to say thanks for joining me. I am a gardener, I'm a horticulturist, I'm an author, I'm a speaker. I am here to answer your gardening questions. And we've had some questions, but before we get to those questions, I want to talk about the fall fair. We did a little bit of promo on that last week. I was getting ready for the fall fair. I've got my horticulture guide, all the things I can enter. Mike Maxwell's here. Hi, Mike. I can't believe it. This is it. I'm by myself. I didn't mention that, Mike. Ian is not here this week, and usually Ian is here prompting me, reading the questions. Look at this. I'm going to go over and press like that Mike is here. There you go. I did all of that all by myself. Anyway, I was talking, Mike, I don't know if you've got a fall fair in Medicine Hat. I think you're from Medicine Hat. This is the little form I'm using, and you don't have to enter everything. The interesting thing was I noticed they had celery. Oh, celery. I looked it up. I started my celery on January 8th. That's a long time ago. Anyway, take out what you've got. Take out the guide. It only costs $1 at most of the fall fairs, and it's kind of fun. So, good to see you here, Mike, and let's start with the questions. One of the things I dug yesterday, I hope my microphone's working. Let me know if it's not. One of the things I dug yesterday is potato. See this potato? This is, well, you might say it's a beautiful potato, but look at these brown spots. Look at these, lumpy. See them in profile, they're just a little bit raised, a little bumpy. This potato is a warba potato, and warba is an early potato. So those are ready really, really early. You can, well, be digging them already. I'm already digging them, but you could have even been digging them a few weeks ago. And the thing about the warba potatoes, they're very thin-skinned. They're very early and very thin-skinned. And so we had a question from Cherie about potato scabbing. She had scabbing 2 years ago. Then she added lime, and that's part of the problem. Scabby potatoes are a bacteria that grows in the soil. Now, can you get rid of all the bacteria in your life? No, you can get it off your hands just before you eat, or you can wash your face just before you have a kiss. But as soon as you are dealing with potatoes, it's everywhere. Like scabbiness can be everywhere. And honestly, oh, microphone is working, Mike said. Thanks, Mike. I've got him checking in on me. I like that. So scabbiness in potatoes is caused by bacteria. It raises the bumps. So the question was, can you still eat them? Definitely. You can still eat your potatoes. Do not add lime. Instead, you can add a product called gypsum. Gypsum looks like this. Whoops, am I showing it right? It's just a very fine granule. And it's not calcium, like lime is just straight calcium. Gypsum is a mixture of calcium and sulfur, so it's basically a neutral, so it's not going to change your soil too much one way or the other. But if your soil is too limey and you're adding lime every year, that's exactly what causes scab, so try to stay away from that. I talked to one person who adds bark chips, which seems funny, but you could add bark chips if you want, but just the thing is, don't add lime. You don't need to add extra lime. And by the way, here I am down in my office. This is the first time I've actually done the broadcast for my office. So there you go. You can see all my many things in my office. Oh, thanks, Ian. Ian is away, but he's reporting in that it looks good. So that's great. So anyway, scabby potatoes. Cherie has scabby potatoes, but she's been putting down lime. So my answer to her is stop liming. If you have to add lime because your soil test says that you're low on calcium, add gypsum. That is calcium sulfate, and that is certified for organic gardeners. She wondered if maybe it was a worm. It's not a worm, it's a bacteria. So carry on, stop liming. And also I should point out, the same time that I dug this really warba which was the really scabby one. I also dug this Ziegland. Ooh, where are we? Here we are. Ziegland is a beautiful, thicker skinned potato. Ooh, kind of scary getting it in. And it is not scabby. And here's a red potato, French. It's called French fingerling. And this one has a few scabs, but not as many as the Warba. So when we say to you that it is a variety difference, this is the difference. Different types, especially the russety brown potatoes, don't get as much scab. Can I add the leaves from my cedar to my compost? That is a great question, Mike. Thank you for asking that. The cedar leaves, actually the cedar's an evergreen, but you can definitely add that to your compost. If you had a chipper, that would be better. I actually had a borrowed chipper for about a year and I just loved it. But it did take up a lot of space. So if you can chip them and get them ground down quite finely, then I think that that's going to help in the compost, because what you want in the compost is you want something that's slightly acidic, and something like cedar will do that for you. So that is a really good question, Mike. I don't know if you're thinking of putting a whole tree in, or if you just, have a few branches that you're taking off your cedar, but you can definitely add some. Oh, so Ian's wondering when he can pull up his potatoes. They have just flowered. These are Ian's first potatoes. He's not here, but you can see he's kind of here. He's remotely visiting us. He wonders when. And Ian, we already had this question a couple of weeks ago, but I'll answer it for you. When the potatoes bloom, that means that they are forming baby potatoes. When they're finished blooming, it means that the potatoes are sizing up. So from now on, once they are past this initial stage of blooming, they'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I am going to enter this size of Ziegland into the fall fair. I've already got 3 potatoes that look identical, ready to go. But really, the bigger potatoes, there'll be somebody with a bigger potato that will win, because the more you water them from the stage that they flower to the stage that the plants get old, the more you can give them water, the bigger the potatoes will get. So Ian, what I suggested to other people that are just starting is just to reach down. I know you're growing in the grow bag, so just reach down and feel with your hands. Not today, because I think it's too soon. They're just finished flowering, but in a couple of weeks. And every time you look down, you'll be able to just feel them with your hands, and then you can just pull out a few potatoes. You don't have to pull the whole plant. So that's what I would do. Okay. Yay, someone's going to enter mine. That's probably Ian. Watch out, he says. I told him I'm not worried about him competing. So that was Cherie. She was asking about her potatoes. I wanted to mention, while we're there, about some of the tomatoes that I'm entering. This is how you do it. You put them on a plate. Whoops, rolling around. You pick 3 tomatoes that are exactly the same size. I know sometimes when you're looking at tomatoes, you actually see that some of them are bigger or smaller, but if you can find them in your garden that are approximately the same size, I'm sure Mike has a lot of good ones on his. So usually they request with tomatoes 3 tomatoes per plate, unless you're doing a cherry tomato. Oops, I just dropped a plate. And this is the chocolate sprinkles. Can you see that one? The chocolate sprinkles, that what they request when you do a cherry style tomato, and this is quite a nice brown tomato actually. This was new from Stokes this year. They request 6 tomatoes, so I'm going to actually have to cut quite a few off, because there's 3, 4, 5, there's 6, 9, 14 tomatoes on here. So I'll have to cut most of the tomatoes off. I'll just clip the stem and leave the 6 attached, because with cherry tomatoes they usually want 6, and with bigger tomatoes they want 3, and they're limiting me. I'm only allowed to put in 2 kinds of tomatoes. So I'm going to show you a little sneak peek. This is the new one I got from Renee's this year. This is called chocolate, or Tasmanian chocolate, and as you can see, it's not really that chocolate. It's really quite red. So that tomato is large. It's the biggest one I've got, but I'm not going to enter it because I find it tastes kind of mushy. I don't really like it. And here's another one I'm not going to enter. This is the one that's very flat on the bottom. You'll notice the ones I am entering are, there it is. This one's called Hamlet. This is the one when I put it out in my driveway to give it away to people a few years ago. People stopped by and told me that they hated it, but it's a really good storage tomato. It'll stay and stay and stay and stay. So I really, really like that. So that's what I'm doing with tomatoes. Okay, on to the next question, which is from Benita. Benita is asking about aphids and how to get rid of aphids. Well, she's trying soap and water. Really, what you have to do with aphids, you can just use your hose and spray them off. If you put it on a high power hose, just spray them off just because it'll help you feel better. The truth is, if there are any beneficial bugs in there, I'll tell you a little story, Benita. I had aphids on, I bought peppers. I just bought 2 peppers. So with everything else, I buy a package of seed. I have 200. I have too many. But with peppers, I knew that I only needed 2 and I wanted Hungarian peppers. So I bought 2 peppers, and about 2 weeks later, they were just covered with aphids. All my other plants that I'd grown from seed were fine, but those 2 peppers were covered. I thought, I'm just going to ignore it, and I did. And then I started to see the little brown bumps, and those are the aphid predators that come in. And now those peppers are huge. The peppers are huge, and I don't have any aphids on them. So Benita, you have to be patient. You're asking on your note if you can import ladybugs. Please do not do that. Asian ladybugs have become a pest in Canada. They look a lot like the regular ladybugs, but they've become a pest. Some ladybugs are being wild collected in California in the winter, and that of course diminishes the quantity that we have of ladybugs. So do not import ladybugs. Attract them naturally, or attract the other parasites. Today I went out and where is that leaf? I went out and my sesame, there's so much show and tell today. My sesame leaves on my plants were actually quite covered with aphids. This one looked good. But I brought it in because I was at a sushi restaurant on Saturday, and I had a piece of sesame leaf that had been tempura. It had been put in tempura batter. And I thought, I had never seen a leaf that shape. Honestly, never seen that. And especially had never seen it tempura'd. So I'm just bringing that in to tell you that sesame leaves are edible. So anything, if you've got aphids, don't spray, please. Just let the natural things come in. When I turned the leaves over, some of these sesame leaves, especially near the growing tips where most of the sugars are, you'll see that on lupins as well and other things that are quite sweet. What you'll see is that they are a little more attractive to aphids, but don't worry about it, because today when I went out and looked, I saw that I had aphidoletes, which is a little orange insect that crawls along and will eat the bad guys. So that is something I was just going to leave away. Oh, Mike has a little watermelon growing. This is like a private conversation between Mike and I. I really like that. I have a little watermelon growing. How big is your watermelon, Mike? I had mine, of course, if you've been watching the little jobs in the garden, I had to cover mine with fabric because the deer kept eating them. But I want to report in that my melons are this big now. They are bigger than my head. So my melons, and I am entering those in the fair. So tell us if you're doing that. I'm going to see if I can go in and like that. Look at that. Yay. I can do some things. All right, Ian, you've got to watch out now. I know you want me to watch you, but you've got to watch me. So Benita, I hope you understand you don't have to spray those aphids. Maybe just a good wash with water if you put your hose on a fast stream, but really just try to attract in the beneficial bugs. And there's lots of them out there. Those things are found around the world. If you are not attracting beneficial bugs, then you need to add more flowering plants. And most of the herbs are flowering. And I think that's good in the garden this week. If you have got aphids, you must add more flowering herbs, because if you've got more herbs, you'll have more blooms. And that gives food for those beneficial insects when they're waiting for someone like Benita that has aphids, or someone like me with my sesame plants. I have lots of aphids, but lots of aphidoletes. So I'm going to be patient. I know my peppers came back, and I know that my sesames will as well. So don't worry about that. Don't use soap and water. You're thinking of that. Don't order ladybugs. That's not a good thing. Okay. Learning this week was going to be how to get plants ready for the fall fair. And so I wanted to actually tell you to read the directions, because when you read the directions, it'll tell you exactly what they want. Tomatoes, for instance, it wants you to, if you read in your book, it wants you to include the stem. With potatoes, it wants you to brush them dry. It doesn't want you to wash them. So with each specific, I think with zucchini, it wants the zucchini. Look at the zucchini. I know. It's not the biggest zucchini, so I'm not putting it in that category. It kind of got away from me, but it is a little over 10 inches long. With zucchini, it says 10 inches long. You can see it's, there you go. Casey zucchini. It's more than 10 inches. This is about a 12 one. It's not a house. It's not as big as a house like some of my zucchinis. This one's called Ford Hook. See how shiny and glossy it is? It's a beautiful zucchini, but it's too big to enter in the zucchini category because they specifically say not more than 10 inches. Also, it's got a bit of a bend in it. With zucchini, that never wins a prize. I used to be a judge, so the ones with bends never win a prize. Judges like everything to be exactly the same. So learning this week is getting ready for the fair, and the best advice I can give you is to get your fair guide. They're usually online. Small towns, everything from Airdrie to Medicine Hat to Coombs, which is happening this weekend, all have their own guides, and all the specific little directions are written down. So learning is learn to read and read those directions. I accidentally almost put my beans in the wrong category because they're green beans and they're climbing, but I put them in climbing other, I don't know why I put them in that category. I caught it at the last minute. So read the directions and that will be excellent for you. So that is good in the garden, I think. No, that was learning. I have one more learning thing. Sorry, too many learnings today. But I went out to my garden and I collected, if you're watching and you have been, where's the camera? If you've been out in your garden and you've seen these, which look a lot like maybe dandelions, these are actually lettuce. This is lettuce. And if you actually just let them fall away, if the seeds are so ripe, they'll just fall away like that. You can see those black seeds. I don't know if you can see the little black seeds. There they are. If the little black seeds are just falling away, or some types of lettuce have white seeds. So if they're falling away and blowing off in the wind, that means they're ready to plant. There's a beautiful one. Look at that. I don't know how close I have to be to show you that. Anyway, that is lettuce gone to seed, and it's a good time in your garden when they do go to seed to start collecting them, and you can reseed them right away. I just seeded some radishes a couple of days ago. 2 days, they're already up. So people think it's too hot right now. It's really not too hot. As long as you've got a spot that you can keep moist, do some seeding. Oh, looks like Mike Maxwell's back. This is like a personal conversation with Mike. Thanks for joining me. I have a climbing rose that didn't flower, but Morning Glory is putting out flowers instead. I wonder if your original climbing rose died, Mike. I'm assuming it might be a hybrid because sometimes hybrid roses don't come back. For whatever reason, maybe they die below the graft dies, or they at the top dies and the graft comes and then they start to seed up. And if that has happened to you, then you might have to dig it out. But your Morning Glory, well, some people don't like Morning Glory. They actually think it's kind of a weed. Yeah. In some areas, it's actually listed as a noxious weed, which means you're not allowed to grow it. But maybe you're growing the really pretty blue type Morning Glory. There's some pretty pink ones, some pretty blue ones, and those ones are entirely ornamental and not noxious. It's that perennial white one that's quite noxious. So is it one of the colored ones? I'm going to ask you that. I am going to actually reply with white or colored, because if it's one of the white ones, oops, too many O's in the word colored. If it's one of the white ones, it's probably one of the perennials. That's kind of a noxious weed. So let me see, what else do we have to do today? We have Good in the Garden. We have the book. We have talked about the gypsum. I'll show that one more time. If you've got a problem with scab, you can definitely put some gypsum out instead of putting lime. Lime is usually calcium with magnesium or calcium mixed with sulfur. And in this case, the gypsum, it's calcium mixed with sulfur. So that is the one you want to use in your garden. Sherry has English cucumbers that have bitter tasting skin. You know, you'll find that when I was in Cranbrook just a few weeks ago, I found out that people actually don't pick their cucumbers that first come on the plants. They wait and get the taller cucumbers later because the taller ones, the ones that are coming up higher along the stem, seem to be sweeter. It's probably because of the amount of sunlight they're getting. Once they get taller, they've been getting more sun, the plants have more leaves. And in that case, I think it's fair to say that they're going to be sweet, but I actually peeled one of my earlier English cucumbers this year too, because they can be bitter. It's no big deal. Other people just cut off the end and rub it in. I don't know how that works. My mom always did that. But just be patient. The next one or two that you get will probably be a lot sweeter. Doreen Backstad mentions that William Allen advised her to use alfalfa meal around her plants. And of course, we advised that a few weeks ago on the little jobs in the garden as well, using some kind of plant meal like alfalfa meal, canola meal, soya meal. You can buy these at the feedlots. The food stations where you would buy chicken feed or things like that. And these different various meals are actually pretty high in nitrogen. Alfalfa is the lowest in nitrogen, so I'm actually surprised that it helped save Doreen's yellowing leaves on her cucumbers and her beans. Now, in that front, I have some news on my greenhouse. I seeded some radishes just a few days ago, and I also seeded beans and peas. And when I say a few days ago, I mean August 2nd. So that was actually 4 days ago. But within 2 days, the radishes came up. And just yesterday, so within 3 days, the peas came up. The beans are not up yet, but that soil is nice and warm. And why am I doing this? Well, firstly, I took out my zucchinis. I like to take out the zucchinis in my greenhouse when the ones outside are producing. And you can see zucchini outside producing. So when I start to get zucchinis outside, I don't want to leave too many on the inside of my greenhouse. So I actually take the ones out inside, and that opens up a big space because I'm actually getting ready for fall now. Even though it's the heat of summer, I am starting to get ready for fall. So I have some, what do you call them, shade cloth on top of my greenhouse. So that's keeping it a bit cooler than it would normally be. I also have a fan built in. And so I've seeded my radishes, beans, peas, and some extras like lettuce. What else have I seeded? I put in a few more cucumbers as well. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get ready for fall already. So there you go. That's what I'm working on. Okay, I think that's it for questions, unless Mike has another question. I've been sitting here wondering if anybody else has a question or if anybody else is joining us today, but it doesn't really matter because this is your chance once a week between 3 and 3:30 that you can come online and you can ask me a gardening question. I actually have a lot of gardening to do and a lot of weeding, so I should be outside, but I like to answer these questions because they give me such good ideas for all of my writing, my blog writing, and the different things that I do. If you're not on my newsletter already, that's something you should do. So go into my webpage, donnabalzer.com, and just sign up at the bottom. You just put in your name and your email address. And once a month, I send you out a newsletter. I've had so much response to my newsletter. I sent it out last week, and so many people have been asking. Now, this week, if you were listening in, or if you got the newsletter, and it goes out to more than 1,000 people, so there's a chance you got it. If you sign up for the free newsletter, you probably heard that I was going to have Kevin Lee on the show today. Kevin Lee is an arborist. He's been pruning trees and shaping them, and he's really a minimalist. He doesn't want to randomly cut trees if they don't need to be cut. So he's a really good model, a role model for people that want to learn a little more about trimming and pruning trees. So Kevin Lee is waiting. He's willing to come in, but because we couldn't get Ian down today, and Ian does all the magic with blending two people on the screen at once, so we couldn't get Ian in. So because of that, we asked Kevin if he would come next week, and he said yes. He got back to me and said he can come next week. So look forward to the tree expert, Kevin Lee, coming in next week. And if you've heard of Lee Valley Tools, this is a grandfather of Kevin, so that's pretty exciting. And he has nothing to do with him. I don't think he's a shareholder or anything, but he is an arborist. He's from Calgary, but as you know, once you know how to prune a tree, you know how to do it everywhere. So next week, I will have Kevin coming in. And I think that's it for this week because I don't have any more questions and I've run out of time. Well, I haven't run out of time. I could talk forever, but I want to make sure that if you are thinking about entering your fall fair, that you do that. If you've got scab on your potatoes, get out there and just harvest them and eat them anyways. But in future years, rotate your crops. Make sure you don't water them too much. Make sure you add gypsum. If you've got aphids, be patient. They'll probably go away, although you want to maybe hose them down with just water. And if you've got other problems like that, make sure to text me next time, because on Facebook Live, I am on every single Monday. So thanks again. Don't forget to have a look at your library to see if you can find the 3-year Gardener's Gratitude Journal. It's a part diary, part personal growing guide. So you can record all of your garden hits and misses. It's a really fun way to keep track, and I'm really enjoying mine. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining me today.